I would like to see a lot more compassion and understanding, less judgmental feelings. I know they may not show it or speak it, but you can feel the vibes. So it'd be a lot of more acceptance and a lot less feeling of being judged in any way. I get welcoming and unconditional acceptance and love for the individual that may be going through similar situations of a parent raising a child who has the disability. For the teachers, assistants, TAs that deal with young children that have the disability of FASD, I think just dealing with the student one-on-one, eye-to-eye contact at all times, eye level. Whenever I ran into situations with Daniel, I would sit him in front of me and made sure we had eye contact, and he would be more focused. That would just draw him in. So it'd be doing a lot of the eye-to-eye contact with the individual you're working with, and to educate yourself on what FASD is all about. Take in as many workshops, conferences, because information is changing rapidly, and you always have to be and stay on top of things, stay on top of all the information that's being shared with the audience and with the TA or the teacher that's going to be working with the student. I would suggest getting circle support groups in place, and then everybody could come together and brainstorm and talk to each other about what supports they would like to see in place, as well as providing any kind of written information about the topic. There's a lot of strategies and solutions. They call a little booklet on the topic, so just making sure that all written information is shared and ordered and received. I think that would help a lot of individuals who have questions regarding this topic. The advice I'd like to give parents is to continue to advocate for the child at all times in schools and any kind of other social setting, and to not be so hard on yourself thinking that they are not doing a good job, or they could have done things differently, or they could be better. It's just to bring yourself to a lot of times the level of the child. Like they may be 16, for example, but they're really operating at a 10 to 12-year-old, 8 to 12, I should say, level. And so lowering their expectations on the child would help so much, and not always expecting them to be up to par with their peers. That would be one of the number one advice I would have for a parent caregiver. That one is a very good question, and I find that teachers are the ones who need the most education on this topic. They seem to brush it under the carpet and not want to discuss it, or they don't have time to even address it or talk about it. So I would let the teacher know that this is what's happening and you need to read up on it, you need to educate yourself about it. That way they would adjust their expectations and their attitudes and behaviors toward the child. So it would be taking on more FASD 101 training and learning about strategies to help the child. It would be to allow him to explore his world and to not restrict him too much, to play with him at his level, and to allow him to like run around and not constantly tell him be quiet, sit down, or anything along those lines. It's just to allow him to explore his world at his own time, and I think a lot of the daycare individuals, workers too, need a lot of training in this field. It needs to happen in all departments, I find, within any community. So it would be more discussions and more communicating and more awareness needs to be out there. Bullying seems to be a very common obstacle for individuals, students with this disability, and it's just having to have a spokesman, having to have an advocate to go in and address the issue. I know a lot of the, it was a teacher aide he was referring to. And I would have to talk to her continuously. If I didn't go in person, I phoned and made sure that she received a message that I wanted her to receive. So it would be open, honest communication. And I know it appeared like I was overbearing, I was over controlling, but I had to do it. I had to advocate for him at all levels. And that meant not only his peers, but the teacher aide and the principal. The principal and I had it out a few times, but we were just communicating, making sure our messages were heard, because he treated Daniel like any other student, and you have to kind of not, he shouldn't have done that on a lot of cases, because he threatened him verbally a few times, so I had to go in and correct that. So it would just be making sure you're on top of things with your advocacy and communications. In that regard, I don't see it being honored or noticed. On September 9th of every year is FASD Day, being the 9th month, the 9th day. And it's often overlooked. I don't see it having that day commemorated in any way in the schools. We do have it in our community, as I am the FASD coordinator for Samson, and we do plan events for that day and bringing out the awareness. We have a walk that we do, and we give out t-shirts. And then we have a FASD 101 presentation, and we also usually serve a hot meal and door prizes throughout the event. And at times we'll get a comedian or entertainer come in to entertain the crowd. But September 9th is International FASD Day, and I don't see it celebrated or mentioned in schools. I find that ceremony is really helpful for these individuals, attending sweats, for example. Having them there to be with you means the world to them. A lot of times they've never been included in ceremonies. So like Daniel has been doctored in a sweat regarding his G-tube, but he's also been in there from time to time. And that I find is very helpful to go into a sweat periodically. And for the other ceremonies, they could benefit from it, like round dances, feasts, being able to serve at feasts, and to be included in those important events makes them feel accepted and loved. So ceremony is a big thing in our family for both Daniel and Floyd. Oh, what helped a lot in elementary years for Daniel's teachers and myself was to always write in a daily log, in a booklet. And she would write things to me, what's going on in school for him, and I would respond back and let her know what's going on at home. And that was the best tool that they came up with. Like, we would communicate back and forth that way, is to making sure that they know what's going on at home and I know what's going on at school. So that would be key. That is key. And the other thing I wanted to mention was early intervention is the major key to success for these individuals. Daniel was fortunate enough to get his early intervention when he did in kindergarten. And that made a big, big difference for him in getting his teacher aids in place and to get his hearing aids in place and anything else he needed to succeed in school. The number one key that I find that was helpful is making sure the child is in the front row at all times in the classroom, sitting down, or single file going down to the library, for example. Being in the front row, not in the middle, not in the back, definitely not in the back. And then just to give the student one-on-one as much as they could, making sure that they get the assignment or that they know what they're supposed to do, know where they're supposed to be at. So it would be giving them that one-on-one when they can, or obviously having a teacher aide to accommodate them and be with them. That is a very touchy area. I guess I would suggest that they do what the teacher said to me. You know, I can't pinpoint what's wrong, but there is obviously a delay, or there could be something that should be looked at. Something along those lines, and not just throwing it at them saying they're FAS. I can tell they are. Like, kind of in a roundabout way telling them they need something addressed, they need something looked at, they need an assessment to help us help him. For the parent, it would be having to address that issue too head on, and just telling them like what the doctor said to me, we're here to help you. We're not here to judge you. Can we work together and make sure that we're addressing the needs of your child? And if you needed help in any way, you know, there's a therapist that you can talk to. I have gone through many years of therapy. I have talked with about 3 or 4 different therapists in my lifetime. And that was the saving grace for me a lot of times, because I would need to vent and I would need to talk about things I wouldn't talk about with anybody who wouldn't understand where I'm coming from and wouldn't think I'm harshly judging myself or being very negative. So it would have to be just open, honest communication. To be loving toward, I think loving and forgiveness go hand in hand. Loving yourself, being positive about anything that's going on with your child. I know that seems to be hard at times, and I guess one of the things I didn't mention is, and I know it's hard, is not to take things personal. Your child may lash out and you take it very personal, or your sibling or family member who has the disability would be very harsh, and to not take it personal. That was one of the number one things I heard when I took FASD 101 from different workshops and conferences, is not to take things personal, because that's where all the bad feelings or the negativity feelings come forward, like they reach the top.